Viking Portable Library World Bible, edited by Robert O. Ballou, continues the Confucianist. You want to make the teaching easy on the disciple. From the Analects of Confucius. And is this classified under the Confucian Scriptures? Yeah, I guess it is. The master said, "Is it not pleasant to learn without a constant perseverance and application? Is it not delightful to have friends coming from distant quarters? Is he not a man of complete virtue, who feels no discomposure, though many men take no note of him?" You keep going. People are like, "Oh, well, I can't." It's some people organize a teaching and then a few people show up, and I've seen it, and it's like, well, not enough people showed up. Let's not do anything after we pray. That's it. Let's leave the teaching. And it's like, no, if there's one person, there's one person. If there's 10, there's 10. There doesn't have to be 20 people show up. Fine words and an insinuating appearance are seldom associated with true virtue. Philosopher Tsiang said, "I daily examine myself on 3 points: whether in transacting business for others I may have been not faithful; whether in intercourse with friends I may have not been sincere." Discourse, communication. Most people don't know that application of that. I don't think. "Whether I may have not mastered and practiced the instructions of my teacher." The master said, "To rule a country of 1,000 chariots, there must be reverent attention to business and sincerity, economy and expenditure, and love for men, and the employment of the people at the proper seasons." Zhe Xia said, "If a man withdraws his mind from the love of beauty and applies it as sincerely to the love of the virtuous, if in serving his parents he can exert his utmost strength, if in serving his prince he can devote his life, if in his intercourse with his friends his words are sincere." Most people, discourse is probably a easier way to get that concept across. "Although men say he has not learned, I will sincerely say that he has. The philosopher Yu said, when agreements are made according to what is right, what is spoken can be made good. When respect is shown according to what is proper, one keeps far from shame and disgrace. When parties upon whom a man leans are proper persons to be intimate with, he can make them his guides and masters. The master said, he who aims to be a man of complete virtue in his food does not seek to gratify his appetite, nor in his dwelling place does he seek the appliances of ease. He is earnest in what he is doing, and careful in his speech, and he frequents the company of men of principle, that he may be rectified. Such a person may be said indeed to love to learn. I will not be afflicted at men's not knowing me. I will be afflicted that I do not know men." Yeah, it's not about your fame. It's about what your knowledge and what you're doing about people. The master said, "He who exercises government by means of his virtue may be compared to the North Polar Star when it keeps its place, and all the stars turn around it. If the people be led by laws, and uniformity sought to be given them by punishments, they will try to avoid the punishment, but have no sense of shame. If they be led by virtue, and uniformity sought to be given them by rules of propriety, they will have the sense of shame. and moreover will become good. You need to address the reward system, not just the control system. At 15, I had my mind bent on learning. At 30, I stood firm. At 40, I had no doubts. At 50, I knew the decrees of heaven. At 60, my ear was an obedient organ for the reception of truth. At 70, I could follow what my heart desired without transgressing what was right. I have talked with Hai for a whole day, and he has not made any objection to anything I said, as if he were stupid. He has retired, and I have examined his conduct when away from me, and found him to be able to illustrate my teachings. Hoe, he is not stupid. See what a man does? Mark his motives. Examine in what things he rests. How can a man conceal his character? If a man keeps cherishing his old knowledge so as continually to be acquiring new, he may be a teacher of others. Yeah, some people think of Luciferianism as some sort of Satanism where you just throw out all your old teaching. You don't adhere to or believe in anything. You just try to figure out your own beliefs. No, it's more like the child's stage. Your mother gives you those relationship skills and an emotional sense of gratitude and stuff like that, and your father tells you the rules and skills, and then as a child, you develop and you decide what to do away with. Tse-kyung acts what constituted the superior man. The master said he acts before he speaks, and afterwards speaks according to his actions. The superior man is universally minded and no partisan. The inferior man is a partisan and not universal. The master said, "You, shall I teach you what knowledge is? When you know a thing, to hold that you know it. And when you do not know a thing, to allow that you do not know it. This is knowledge." The Duke I acts, saying, "What should be done in order to secure the submission of the people?" Confucius replied, "Advance the upright and set aside the crooked. Then the people will submit. Advance the crooked and set aside the upright. Then the people will not submit." One of the ways to be crooked is people are like, They're like, well, I oppose drug use. And then someone will say, no, how about we just outlaw these? How about we put an age limit here? So we have a country overrun with a bunch of drug addicts. There's worse things in life to be. Because we're like, no, dude, don't be disciplined. Don't improve your diet. Don't address those chemical imbalances in your blood and urine. No, don't do that. Just take a bunch of drugs. And, oh, well, it doesn't matter about your smoking and your drinking. And if caffeine reduces the blood flow to your brain and can create some symptoms on its own, no, don't ignore that stuff. Just take pills. Take pills. If you can afford to drink for dinner, don't skip out. Drink. Have a beer or something. Have some wine. Well, that's not. And then you have a war on drugs. Utterly ridiculous. If there's a category that's considered wrong, there's a category that's considered wrong and damaging to the system and not conducive of consciousness. There are other issues I could talk about, but that's sort of innocuous, as an example goes. The master said, "The superior man in the world does not set his mind either for anything or against anything. What is right he will follow. The superior man thinks of virtue. The small man thinks of comfort. The superior man thinks of the sanctions of law. The small man thinks of the favors which he may receive. He who acts with a constant view to his own advantage will be much murmured against. A man should say, I am not concerned, that I have no place. I am concerned how I may fit myself for one. I am not concerned that I am not known. I seek to be worthy to be known. The master said of Cha'an that he had 4 of the characteristics of a superior man. In his conduct of himself, he was humble. In serving his superiors, he was respectful. In nourishing the people, he was kind. In ordering the people, he was just. The master said respectfulness, without the rules of propriety, becomes laborious bustle. Carefulness, without the rules of propriety, becomes timidity. Boldness, without the rules of propriety, becomes insubordination. Straightforwardness, without the rules of propriety, becomes rudeness. When those who were in high stations perform well all their duties to their relations, the people are aroused to virtue. When old friends are not neglected by them, the people are preserved from inferiority. And one of the things that ritual does is it gives the propriety to each of these things in your practice. The master said the linen cap that is prescribed by the rules of ceremony, but now a silk one is worn. It is economical, and I follow the common practice. The rules of ceremony prescribe the bowing below the hall, but now the practice is to bow only after ascending it. That is arrogant. I continue to bow below the hall, though I oppose the common practice. You know, if you think something's better when it comes to ritual forms, you're probably wrong. There were 4 things from which the master was entirely free. He had no foregone conclusions, no arbitrary predeterminations, no obstinacy, and no egotism. The master said, I have not seen one who loves virtue as he loves beauty. Some scents have the meaning of beauty and love combined. So, well, I mean, they have the symbolic attributes, so they may be good for addressing this issue in terms of something ritually applied. A youth is to be regarded with respect. How do we know that his future will not be equal to our present? If he reaches the age of 40 or 50 and has not made himself heard of, then indeed he will not be worth being regarded with respect. Hold faithfulness and sincerity as first principles. Have no friends, not equal to yourselves. When you have faults, do not fear to abandon them. Confucius in his village looked simple and sincere, as if he were not able to speak. When he was in the prince's ancestral temple or in the court, he spoke minutely on every point, but cautiously. When he was waiting at court and speaking with the great officers of the low grade, he spoke freely, but in a straightforward manner. In speaking with those of the higher grade, he did so blandly, but precisely. When the ruler was present, his manner displayed respectful uneasiness. It was grave, but self-possessed. He ascended the reception hall, holding up his robe with both hands, and his body bent, holding in his breath also, as if he dared not breathe. When he came out from the audience, as soon as he had descended one step, he began to relax his countenance, and had a satisfied look. When he had got to the bottom of the steps, he advanced rapidly to his place, with his arms like wings, and on occupying it, his manner still showed respectful uneasiness. The stable being burned down, when he was at court, on his return, he said, Has any man been hurt? He did not ask about the horses. So, these people didn't care too much about animals. But we know from stuff like this that Confucius wasn't actually the writer of these, just like Deuteronomy 18:18, or there's spots in the 5 books of Moses that make clear that it's not the 5 books of Moses. It's about Someone else wrote it. Chilu asks about serving the spirits of the dead. The master said, why? While you are not able to serve men, how can you serve their spirits? If you can't do something for people when they're alive, why wait till they're dead? Oh, we should have guided them, or we should have helped them, and Chilu added, I venture to ask about death. He was answered, while you do not know life, how can you know about death? Tze Kung asked which of the two, Xie or Shang, was superior. The master said, Xie goes beyond the due mean, and Shang does not come up to it. Then, to Tze Kung, the superiority is with Xie, I suppose. The master said, to go beyond is wrong, as to fall short. To Tze Lu, Xiang Si, Yen Yu, and Kung Hase Hua were sitting by the master. He said to them, though I am a day or so older than you, do not think of that. From day to day you are saying, we are not known. If some ruler were known to you, what would you like to do? Tze Lu hastily and lightly replied, suppose the case of a state of 10,000 chariots. Let it be straitened between other large states. Let it be suffering from invading armies. And to this let there be added a famine in corn and in all vegetables. If I were entrusted with the government of it, in 3 years' time I could make the people to be bold and to recognize the rules of righteous conduct. The master smiled at him. You can be the best teacher in the world and things can go wrong. Turning to Yen Yu, he said, what are your wishes? Ea replied, suppose a state of 60 or 70 li square, or one of 50 or 60. Let me have the government of it. In 3 years' time, I could make plenty to abound among the people. As to teaching them with the principles of propriety and music, I must wait for the rise of a superior man to do that. What are your wishes, said to the master, next to Kang Hase Hua. Replied. I'm sure his stomach didn't growl when he said that, or that could have happened too, and it would have been left out. I do not say that my ability extends to these things, but I should wish to learn them at the services of the ancestral temple, and at the audiences of the princes with the sovereign. I should like, dressed in the dark square maid robe and the black linen cap, to act as a small assistant. Last of all, the master asked, Xiang Se, Tian, what are your wishes? Tian, pausing as he was playing on his lute, while it was yet twanging, laid the instrument aside and rose. My wishes, he said, are different from the cherished purposes of these 3 gentlemen. What harm is there in that? Said the master. Do you also, as well as they, speak out your own wishes? Tian then said, in this, the last month of spring, with the dress of the season all complete, along with 5 or 6 young men who have assumed the cap, and 6 or 7 boys, I would wash in the eye, enjoy the breeze among the rain altars, and return home singing. The master heaved a sigh and said, I give my approval to Tian. Yen Yuan asked about perfect virtue. The master said, to subdue oneself and return to propriety is perfect virtue. If a man can for 1 day subdue himself and return to propriety, all under heaven will ascribe perfect virtue to him. Don't worry about your past, just live the day by day, right? Well, if you have to make up for your past, that's different. You got to do that. Chung Kung acts about perfect virtue. The master said, "It is when you go abroad to behave to everyone as if you were receiving a great guest, to employ the people as if you were assisting at a great sacrifice, not to do to others as you would not wish done to yourself, to have no murmuring against you in the country, and none in the family." Tze Chang asked what constituted intelligence. The master said, "He with whom neither slander that gradually soaks into the mud, nor statements that startle like a wound in the flesh are successful, may be called intelligent indeed." Tze Kung asked about government. The master said, "The requisites of government are that there be sufficiency of food, sufficiency of military equipment, and the confidence of the people in the ruler." Also, the government shouldn't just fight to fight or fight to conquer. There should be more to it than that. Tze Kung said, "If it cannot be helped, and one of these must be dispensed with, which of the three should be foregone first?" "The military equipment," said the master. Amen. Tze Kung again asked, "If it cannot be helped with, one of the remaining two must be dispensed with. Which of them should be foregone?" The master answered, "Part with the food. From of old, death has been the lot of all men, but if the people have no faith in their rulers, there is no standing for the state." Che Ka'ang asked Confucius about government, saying, "What do you say to killing the unprincipled for the good of the principled?" Confucius replied, "Sir, in carrying on your government, why should you use killing at all? Let your evinced desires be for what is good, and the people will be good. And the relation between superiors and inferiors is like that between the wind and the grass. The grass must bend when the wind blows across it." Amen. Anyways, the Cyrus the Great, the Messiah, according to the Bible. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of messiahs in the Bible. His name is Kurash. And he said that 100 years of just rule, he's also known as the Lul Karnain, chief of the two horns for uniting Media and Persia. But he's like 100 years of just rule will virtually eliminate killing. And when has that ever happened? Seriously, when has it ever happened? Muhammad said, "After I'm gone, there'll be 30 years of just rule." And there was, if you consider 5 caliphs. As rightly guided. Fan Jie asked about benevolence. The master said, "It is to love all men." He asked about knowledge. The master said, "It is to know all men." Tze Lu said, "The ruler of Y has been waiting for you in order with you to administer the government. What will you consider the first thing to be done?" The master replied, "What is necessary to rectify names? If names be not correct, language is not in accordance with the truth of things. If language be not in accordance with the truth of things, affairs cannot be carried on to success. When affairs cannot be carried on to a success, proprieties and music will not flourish." Now, there's different ways of thinking of music, but yeah, playing musical instruments, that's like an extra thing in life. People aren't successful. Why? But in this culture, it's like, sit around, listen to music, and not get anything done. And no, you get things done first, and then you can turn to the music, if you're going to do that. When proprieties in music do not flourish, punishments will not be properly awarded. When punishments are not properly awarded, the people do not know how to move hand or foot. And if music just exists rather than flourishing, its healing and its spiritual categories are gone, or not there enough, and therefore other values are programmed in through their music. Therefore, a superior man considers it necessary that the names he uses may be spoken appropriately, and also that which he speaks may be carried out appropriately. What the superior man requires is that in his words there may be nothing incorrect. When the master went to Y, Zan Yu acted as the driver of his carriage. The master observed, "How numerous are the people?" Yu said, "Since they are thus numerous, what more shall be done for them?" "Enrich them," was the reply. "And when they have been enriched, what more shall be done?" The master said, "Teach them." Tze Kung asked, saying, "What do you say of a man who is loved by all the people of his neighborhood?" The master replied, "We may not, for that accord our approval of him." "And what do you say of him who is hated by all the people of his neighborhood?" The master said, "We may not, for we may not for that conclude that he is bad." Okay, I presume that's supposed to be a R, but it's kind of twisted that you kind of think, is that an M, or what letter is that supposed to be? So there was a slight issue with the printing. "We may not for that conclude that he is bad. It is better than either of these cases that the good in the neighborhood love him, and the bad hate him." The master said, "The superior man is easy to serve and difficult to please. If you try to please him in any way, which is not in accord with what is right, then he will not be pleased. But in his employment of men, he uses them according to their capacity. The inferior man is difficult to serve and easy to please. If you try to please him, though it be in a way which is not accordant with what is right, he may be pleased. But in his employment of men, he wishes them to be equal to everything." So, I've seen this many times, heard about it even more, I would think, of people who they don't, when it comes to what is, they think they're doing good, they've done good for others to please them. No, they think they've done the wrong thing to please another person, and the other person doesn't seem to please. But when people work together in what's right, it seems to be more common that everybody involved is pleased. Media doesn't make it seem that way, now does it? Someone said, "What do you say concerning the principle that injury should be recompensed with kindness?" The master said, "With what, then, will you recompense kindness? Recompense injury with justice, and recompense kindness with kindness." The master said, "Alas, there is no one that knows me." Tze Kung said, "What do you mean by thus saying that no one knows you?" The master replied, "I do not murmur against heaven, and my penetration rises high, but there is heaven that knows me." That's an important thing. God knows what you're thinking, and not be in conflict. Your impulses, your desires, your actions, well, certainly your actions, your beliefs and your practices, you kind of want them in accord, but you bring that in. The master said, "The determined scholar and the man of virtue will not seek to live at the expense of injuring their virtue. They will even sacrifice their lives to preserve their virtue complete." The master said, "If a man take no thought about what is distant, he will find sorrow near at hand. He who requires much from himself and little from others will keep himself from being the object of resentment." The superior man is stressed by his want of ability. He is not distressed by men's not knowing him. The superior man is dignified, but does not wrangle. He is sociable, but is not a partisan. Tze Kung asked, saying, "Is there one word which may serve as a rule of practice for all one's life?" The master said, "It is not reciprocity such a word?" What's Chinese for reciprocity? What do you not want done to yourself? Do not do to others. The master said the object of the superior man is truth. Food is not his object. The superior man is anxious lest he should not get truth. He is not anxious lest poverty should come upon him. In teaching, there should be no distinction of classes. Tze Chang asked Confucius about perfect virtue. Confucius said, to be able to practice 5 things everywhere under heaven constitutes perfect virtue. He begged to ask what they were and were told: gravity, generosity of soul, sincerity, earnestness, and kindness. If you are grave, you will not be treated with disrespect. If you are generous, you will win all. If you are sincere, people will repose trust in you. If you are earnest, you will accomplish much. And if you are kind, this will enable you to employ the services of others. And if I have failed in any of these, I'm sorry. Sincerely to anybody. Don't think I have, but I don't. Anyways, the master said, "I would prefer not speaking." Tze Kung said, "If you, master, do not speak, what shall we, your disciples, have to record?" The master says, "Does heaven speak? The 4 seasons pursue their courses, and all things are continuously being produced. But does heaven say anything?" Tze Kung said, "Has the superior man his hatreds also?" The master said, "He has his hatreds. He hates those who proclaim the evil of others. He hates the man who, in being in a low station, slanders his superiors. He hates those who have valor merely and are unobservant of propriety. He hates those who are forward and determined, and at the same time of contracted understanding." The master then inquired, "Tze, have you also your hatreds?" Tze Kung replied, "I hate those who pry out matters and ascribe the knowledge to their wisdom. I hate those who are only not modest and think that they are valorous. I hate those who make known secrets and think that they are straightforward." Now, hate the ignorance, hate the sin, the wrongdoing, but not the individual.